Welcome back, John C. How are you keeping?
Fine, Tom. Thanks for having me.
As if we
Uh,
weren't just talking just beforehand, like, you know what I mean? I mean, there's nobody being fooled at this
yeah,
stage. Like, the lads just met each other there now. That gas we got in at the top.
yeah,
The very fact, in fairness, fair play to us, that we didn't spend the first 5 minutes of our interaction doing what we do every time we're on the phone. The first 5 minutes, for anybody wondering, every time myself and
oh
John are on
yeah,
the phone, it's just the two of us, like two bickering, nearly brother-in-laws, I'd say, is what the characters have
yeah,
developed.
or
Yeah. Are
yeah.
they siblings, do you think?
Um, they can be siblings, or they could be cousins, or people. I think there could be siblings for sure, or they can be the next best thing to siblings, which is not cousins or family at all, but just two people who've known each other for 40 years and know everything about each other, which makes them kind of closer than family in a way.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they've
yeah.
done stuff together and done favors and fucked each other up as well. But it's like that thing of doing other people's thinking for them. I was talking to Gary Cook earlier on, and we were talking about that as well. That thing of projecting your own thoughts into some other person and saying, and for anyone listening to us now, it's just characters that go, you you went up the fucking town yesterday and you saw me and you turned the other fucking way. You knew fucking well. You knew when you were going straight into the chemist and you knew that I knew that you were going to the chemist and you still didn't turn around. Oh, you're some bastard.
Oh, here,
That's,
oh, you tramp. And I
you
above,
fucking
and
tramp.
I above in the hospital visiting
And
that
your
poor
mother above
woman.
in the hospital, you fucking bastard. And then stopping it, and well, not to repeat the mother thing, but stopping giving out to each other, and one of them saying, "How's your father?" you know, like getting really, really, really considerate all of a sudden, and almost because they have to. How's your father though? Not too bad. How's your mother? She's all right. She's all right. Anyway, I have to head off.
No, no, but that was the apology. The whole
That's
let's
an
wrap that up.
apology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's wrap that up. I actually, it's funny how guarded people are with their emotions. And
Yeah.
we were in Tesco yesterday. It's been, and the little fella was pushing the trolley or whatever, and we're having a grand old time. And this fella who I kind of recognized, it was in Tipperary town. He walked past and just kind of grunted at me. I went, "Great to see celebs back around the place."
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
celeb, like, for the love of Christ, like, but that
Yeah.
was that was him. And even Natasha went, what did he say? And I said, she went, "That's an odd thing." That is the most heartfelt Tipperary compliment you could
Yeah.
ever, like, it was it
Yeah.
was it was utterly backhanded too. Like, there was a bit of snideness in it, but
I know. I know.
that's as beautiful as it can get. Like, that man, I'd say, has been to 10 years of therapy to get to that point, even, like,
Yeah. And the
because
thing, you're right. I agree with you totally. It's the same. And what we were saying there about it's kind of a dig and a compliment in that he'd know, speaking of like she contradicting what we've just said, he'd know that the Tipperary side of you, whatever you've done outside of Tip or done outside of where you're from, he'd know that the part of you from Tip or from the town where you're from would be embarrassed about celebrity.
oh yeah, yeah, yes,
So he's having
yes,
a go at that, going, "Oh, celebrity, huh?" And he knows that your hometown fella is going, "No, I'm fucking not." But yet, if you're in Dublin or Galway, people talking to you about what you do, you go, "Oh, thanks, thanks."
yeah,
But a local fella going, "Oh, celebrity in the house," you
yeah.
go, "Fuck off, don't say that."
You fucking bastard.
Yeah,
You. And I wouldn't mind, I see the fella then taking a photograph of me weirdly by the fruit aisle. It was the oddest thing ever. It's like, Jesus, lad. Fuck this. But
it was.
it
It,
was as
it,
good as he could do, like.
you remind me of the same underhanded kind of a compliment, and I don't know about a dig, but this was as good as it got around here. And actually, it wasn't me; it was Dermot McMorrow told me this, and I think it's brilliant that someone of his mates from, because Dermot's from just over there, um, just over the road a little bit, and he was in a pub one night and they were watching the Savage Eye was on the telly, and the four of us were on the screen, the four politicians in that
Yes.
setup, and Michael turned to Dermot and he said, "Cheers, Dermot. That's the four fellas there now. Yourself and Colleary and the other two. That's the writers of the Savage Eye." And McMorrow went, "Yeah, that's right, that's right. So two of the writers there is from around here." And Dermot went, "That's right, Mike, that's right." And Michael says, "Cheers, that's a high average." That was his compliment.
Oh, that's actually poetry. That is. That's
Isn't it? Yeah, yeah,
I remember we were living out in County Kildare one time. To be nearly actually, I suppose, the Meath border out near Kinnegad. And there was a pub next door to the house, and I was in there a fair bit for a bit of dinner, and I'd have a pint a couple of times a week. And I was going there a good year, and I got on with the old lads around the place. They all spoke to each other like chainsaws, barks. But there was a caring in it because there was a lot of single chaps in their 50s and 60s, who the mother basically drove away any women that came in around the house. Like that's essentially what it did for so many of them. Like,
yeah.
But or the siblings moved up to the town or up to the city and got a civil servant's job, But these lads were left with the 50 or 60 acres. Like, but I remember I was myself and Gordon Haight with TV show. We did one about ghosts.
Oh yeah.
And it came on the telly over my shoulder. And I'd been like, these fellas now they knew what I was up to, like, they knew the crack, but had never passed judgment or said a thing about it or anything at all. And I was on the telly behind and I didn't realize it. And I'm leaning on the counter and one of them looks up over my head and went, "It's fair play to you." And I looked back at him again, thinking fair play to you for being on telly. He went, "You lost all the weight since then anyway, fair play to you."
Oh.
All I could do was shake. I had to shake his hand, like, because his was so on the nose. His insult was so on the fucking nose that it was like, all right, fair enough. That's actually a pretty good gag. In fairness to you, you horrible bastard. But they were vehemently fucking violent against each other, like the way they spoke.
Yeah.
Real Midlandsy, harsh people, like the way they spoke.
I know.
Like Carberry Bog, Mordor essentially is where they're from. Like, the fuck way they spoke to each other was it was beautiful. But I remember bringing in one of her friend's boyfriend at the time. He's a lovely fella, but he was a Thesp and he was very South Dublin and very nice and lovely chap, but loved a pint and he wanted and I said it to him, I goes, "Listen now, the insult train is going hard in here, like, and it's going fast, like, so either get on it or we'll go play a game of pool." And he went, "Oh no, cool. And sure, mother of jizz tonight.
Yeah.
The fucking bullets were flying back and forth.
Yeah.
Like,
Sliced him up,
the poor old devil, sure. He didn't know.
Sorry?
He didn't know, like, the poor bastard, he didn't know which way to, like, it was completely beyond him. Like, there was no early lead in, there was no nothing. They just assumed at this stage, because he was friends with Tom, he could take the heat. And no. It was.
Jesus. And when you were talking there about them, when you're talking about single men, there's a transition, there's a period, there's a naming thing there that changes. Like, it's single up to a point.
Yes.
And then
do you know what? Even as I was saying it, I knew it wasn't right coming out of my mouth.
But after 61, it's he never married. It's single, and then he never married. That's the change.
Yeah.
Because you're never gonna then.
Yeah.
Well, some people surprise people by doing that later in life. I know one or two around here who did that, but yeah.
It always. Geez, I saw the last I saw of you was. Jeez, that was some cracking Galway that night. You were absolutely, you brought the burners that night. You were on fire. Inside.
That was the
upstairs.
Galway, in Roisin. Yeah, that was nice. Yeah, it was nice to be in the club, and it was one of those atmospheres of festival fun, I guess. Just people really out for a laugh. And that's the thing about a pub gig as well. It has that vibe to it. When it's going well, and you know yourself, we know it can be hard work too. But when it goes well like that, it's really
It was
unstoppable.
that was
And
it.
yeah,
There was this kind of
the vibe.
euphoric vibe amongst everybody from the second I
Yeah,
stood on the stage before I said a
good,
thing.
good.
And I went, Jesus Christ, this is juicy. You'd want to be some bollocks to fuck this up. Do you know
Yeah,
that I actually thought
yeah,
the negative fucker in one corner of my brain went, just want to be some like even for that fucker to say it is a prick. Like,
yeah,
but I put him to
yeah,
bed fairly quickly and just got into the groove of it. Like, but
yeah.
do you know when you
It
find
was lovely.
everybody and anybody that pipes up with anything, do you know when you just got a fast retort for it? Like, and you're just going,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was just one of them. And then I knew I says this now, John is just going to eat this. This will be
And the
meat.
mixture of few out of towners and few locals and tourists, Americans especially. They're lambs to the slaughter a lot of the time with comedy.
But
You
they're
know,
so happy to take it though, for the
they
most
love
part.
taking it because once it's about them, they're really okay. It's not like Irish people who go, "What's that fucker saying about me?" Americans go, "Oh, wow, the guy was talking about us for like 5 minutes. It was awesome. I didn't understand some of the things he said, but it was really funny."
Yeah.
Whereas Irish people would be going, "What the fuck is he saying?" You know.
How's do you miss Dublin?
Um. Whoa, that's a good question, and I do, I do in a way, and to be honest, the majority of it is I don't really, because I feel that I did a certain amount of time there, and
Like,
that's that. But I do miss I do miss some of the I do miss some of the accessibility of things. The thing about gigs and that, the thing about just the kind of first world things, the first world problems, places to eat, things to go and see. Um, I knew a lot of people there. I don't see them anymore. That sort of thing I do miss. But when I go up there, it's easy for me not to miss it too much now because when I go there to do gigs and I'm there at night
yeah,
and I'm in the city center at night
yeah,
and
yeah,
my thoughts are I wouldn't live here
yeah, yeah.
because it's an age thing, number one, and also it's not as has been well documented, it's not the best town center in the world, is it?
No,
You know,
Jesus,
you know.
it struck me. I actually took a picture. I was doing a gig the other night, just last Wednesday. I was doing a gig in Dublin down at Temple Bar in what used to be the check-in. It was
Oh yeah,
upstairs for a crowd. And I was walking past and I actually took a picture of Zaytoon, Zaytoon, the
oh yeah,
kebab
I
joint.
do. Yeah,
And I said to the Natasha, I says, I'm on the way. I said, will I pick you up a bit? Because you know what, I'd nearly chanced it. It was that tasty. But I said, that now is about the only thing I would miss. And I'm walking up and there's people banging into you. There's a lad trying to sell me Coke. And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't need this shit, man.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Even crossing the street up by, up crossing Dame Street and stuff, and there's like 200 of you, and there's lads standing up on top of you. There's, you're going this now.
It's
There's,
just, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not, it, it's things change really quickly, and um, I was there for 25 years. I went there in 1995 and moved back just when the COVID thing started, and even the first time I went back to Dublin after that period, I don't know if it was even that year. It probably was maybe late that year or maybe the following spring or something. And the place had changed physically.
yeah,
It just shows you how quick cities move on. I mean, different shops, different traffic system, different vibe. Shops, stuff had closed down, new stuff opened up, and I had really moved on. And then I knew then I was going, well, that's me done here because uh, it just is because I've gone somewhere else and this place has gone somewhere else too. But
it's this relationship.
yeah,
I found for me, it was the first time I drove back up there in ages, and I hadn't realized that for months on end I hadn't lost my temper. I hadn't lost my temper, not really, not, you know what I mean. Get vexed with an odd thing, like, but the next thing, it's just gone again. But genuinely, I was coming in along and I was whistling. I was in bags of time. I think I was going to the laughter lounge or something, and I got up and I got to the canals to go right along the canals and come down, and literally, like, you know, a cyclist, you know, shaking his fist at the car because he was in the wrong, like he wasn't. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I went from 1 to 11 in under
I
half a
know.
second, like.
I know.
And I just had, thankfully, I had self awareness because I'm going up the road cursing and swearing. And I had the self awareness to start laughing and go, Jesus
Yeah, yeah,
Christ,
yeah, yeah.
you fucking
Because you don't,
lunatic.
because you don't, you get used to, if you, like, since I've been back down in Sligo, which I am enjoying, the COVID thing was hard and all that, but you couldn't have done a pandemic in a better place, to be honest, because it's open. You know, we weren't holed up in our houses. We were at this open country, open countryside, simple enough. And that was kind of a help with the thing that went on. And, and I can't remember what my original point was. Oh yeah, it's just getting used to, again, an age thing, getting used to stuff being a certain way and a certain amount of people around on a daily basis or even on a weekend, and getting used to let's call it what it is, an easier, slower pace of life.
Yeah, that's the
And you
reality.
get
Yeah.
used to that. Get used to that. Then go back into a place where you're getting pushed around. You can't get through traffic. You can't. You have an awful lot of obstacles to overcome to just get across the street or get to the gig you're going to, and then it's late at night when you come out, and there's a bit of hell breaking loose. There's cops. There's ambulances. You know, and it's just like, oh, fucking
Oh
hell.
man, the sigh of relief when I passed the red cow. I'm like, ah,
Yeah,
Chris,
yeah,
grand,
yeah. I get you.
grand.
I understand. Yeah,
Because I've gotten very used to not have to make allowances for other people to a degree. People
yeah.
that certainly aren't related to me, or you know, like, or you know, I remember where we were wasn't too bad, but I remember herself's parents, they were living a lovely part of Radfarnham, but the crowd
Yeah,
next door, in the house next door, were fucking rowing the whole time. They were a brutal
yeah,
couple,
yeah.
and you could fucking hear shit even inside the hall. Now you'd hear them roaring, shouting in their hall next door, and you're going,
Not
the
good.
f-
Not good.
people around here are giving fucking nearly quarters of a million for these fucking houses, and you've to
Not
deal with
good.
that. Like,
Yeah.
you don't take that into consideration at all. Like, you know, nowhere a fucking parks or micro halfway across your drive, you ain't going to work that morning. Like, you know, it's like
Yeah, yeah,
all these allowances for other people. You're going, I don't have the space in my heart for you all. I'm sorry. This is,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it, man. That's
but
it.
I've noticed myself. Well, I started writing it into material and stuff like that because you write what you know, of course, and all the rest of it. And I started noticing. I did a gig in a beautiful part of the country called Cloheen, and this is a very
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing. Cloheen is next stop the mountain, and over the mountain is Waterford. So you're not
Right.
really go. It's a beautiful drive, and that's all you'd be doing. But I ended up selling out 2 nights in this small little village. But what was amazing was I walked into the room. I said, "We get 100 people in here," and the woman who owns it went, "You will in your fuck." And she literally went. I says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "We get 90." She goes, "You will not. You won't get 90. You haven't seen the size of the men around here." And
Oh yeah.
I started laughing, right? Well, suffering sweet Jesus, we kitted it out. We laid out 78 chairs, and I went, "I think there's bags of space around here." She goes, "Those chairs will not be able to be stuck to each other like you think." And she was 100% right. In fact, we probably tipped over the scales a small bit. We could have gone to 70. Some of the men that came through that door suffered. Like one fella, he must have been 4 foot wide across the shoulders. He was a fucking mountain of a man. And there was
Wow.
more like him, you know, and they were trying to be
Yeah.
polite and sitting down with people, but these men didn't fit into the theater life. You know what I mean? They, they didn't fit into.
Yeah.
They
Not
didn't.
design. It's a kind. It's almost like it's something you could put on a CV of a lad from Tip Waterford border, saying not designed for theatre. or not suitable. Like, the vegetarian thing, not suitable
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
vegetarians,
yeah.
not suitable for theatre, like,
Like
or a theatre with not suitable for lads from the tip border. Okay.
it was impressive and it was terrifying and an eye opener at the
Scary.
same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, because these lads are, and I mean, it was fantastic to do stand up for them because they were so appreciative, and not just appreciative, like thanks very much, but they were appreciative in their laughter and stuff because they were just going, "This is fucking mind blowing."
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a man standing
Um,
in the corner of the room saying right funny shit, Jesus,
and
and they'd never been. I would say 90% of them had never seen a live performance of anything, let alone stand up. Do you know?
yeah, it must have been nice to do stand up for them, if only because they were sitting down.
Yeah.
Thank fuck they were sitting down.
Yeah, you know, this is and it was afterwards. I was talking with one fella. My God, he was fucking huge, and he was saying, "Jesus, I never thought about it. I just never thought about where ye came from or how this came about." But it was the fact that they were also green. That's what made it very exciting. They were just
Mm,
green to it. But
mm.
like they were like these are people who they don't have 4 hours in their day to drive to Dublin and to a gig.
No,
They're doing
no.
50, 60 hours in a truck or a tractor, or even they might be working in, something, an office or a shop, but they're doing bigger hours than you do in the city because there isn't the staff to go around. These lads are doing a
Yeah,
full shift,
the whole thing. Yeah,
you know. So I've done a couple now since that, and I'm kind of really liking that. There's a
yeah,
wildness to them, like,
yeah,
there some lads are kind
yeah.
of pointing in the wrong direction, they're laughing at the wrong spots, but there's there's a there's a kind of there's nearly not infantile but adolescent kind of style to it. Just like, yeah,
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
this now, yeah, 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 because we'll wrangle you some which fuck away, like, But I've gotten interested, very interested. Now this sounds too white fellas talking on a fucking podcast, but it's is the genetics of humans and anthropology is starting to fucking really blow my mind, like, because aside from just the giant people that come out of the west of Ireland, like
Yeah,
fucking giants, like even
I
not like
know.
lads who are only school teachers, they're going fucking hell tonight, like what created, like,
Yeah,
you'd say, well, an animal will get bigger if it's got lots of grass to eat or whatever. Like, and
yeah,
it
yeah,
isn't that lads in fucking Mayo and Sligo and Galway are eating more than anybody else. I mean, maybe they are. I don't. But like even
yeah.
you're a stand-up comedian and an actor and a writer, and yet still you're walking around with a strong build. Do you know? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Even though
well,
you did nothing to earn it, really. Like, you weren't
no,
a pro rugby player or a bodybuilder or anything. Like,
it's mad, isn't it? Like, and across the board, we're talking about all men and women and
yeah, oh yeah,
any other gender you'd like to bring in. It's like they're big people. There's like, I know women who are 6'1" or two and broad and not, like, I'm not talking about they're heavy. They're just big build,
yeah.
big builded people. Well, stacked up people, like,
And
um, almost like, when I was in this is off the point, but I was in South Africa one time,
oh my
and
god, yeah,
I was looking at the people, and they were like genetically modified Dutch people. It was like they were taken out and literally planted, which they were planted in the political social sense,
yeah.
but literally planted in the ground out there, and sun and rain and fertilizer, and grew bigger, like fucking huge people.
They're
But
huge.
that's off the point, like. But yeah, you're talking about people who come from a background of hard physical work and lots of fresh air, and very fresh food
Yes. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. So
Because I never,
it does engender more growth, I suppose, more bulk, or more healthy
yeah.
sizes.
Because I remember talking with Pat McDonald about this before, and he was building or he was teaching years ago in kind of
Yeah,
tough areas. And he said, Jesus Christ, you see the runts of children coming in, like, do you know, he said
yeah,
it himself, just run to young fellas who just aren't getting
yeah,
the nourishment at all, like, and
yeah,
ailments, because also their families weren't moving out of the area. So
yeah,
almost like people would joke about interbreeding happening in small rural spots, but it happens in it's because people will collect in one area, for 4 to 5 generations, they'll be in one
Yeah,
spot
yeah,
in the
yeah,
city. Like I said, you could just see it. People had bad knees, just
yeah.
bad conditions, like, and it wasn't odd for people to be just dropping in their 40s.
No, no, and it's the environment. The environment is a big. It determines an awful lot about the size and shape and kind of way of people. And even I used to think of this in what we're talking about in relation to sport years ago. I remember thinking, I suppose that's why more urban people are more kind of attuned to, not always, but more attuned to football, like soccer
Yeah,
football,
yeah, yeah,
because of the quick foot movements and dodging in and out.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
lads,
yeah, yeah,
whereas lads from people from out in the open are more used to jumping up in the air and being able to, like, open space, more
yeah,
open space.
yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah. You can
much
see it.
broader, it's a much broader game in terms of the physicality of it. It's a bigger, more open, more. It's not as street canny as soccer.
Yeah, yeah. Where a bulldozer will work in Gaelic football, like, you know what I mean. Whereas it rarely works in soccer. You know what I mean.
Yeah,
You gotta have the feet of a ballerina to be high end soccer, like. But you can plow people like
yeah,
in Gaelic football, like, That's interesting too, because also the local town here would have had a huge influx back in the early 2000s of a lot of foreign nationals, Eastern European lads and stuff like that,
hmm.
and you see it now in the whatchamacallit, in the some of the GA teams and stuff. Big fucking strong, second generation Polish lads.
Yeah,
But and they just fucking loving hurling and football and all the rest.
yeah,
But
yeah.
well, I love it when you come across a lad who's like Seamus Pujanowski. The parents have indoctrinated, have said, fuck it, I love finding fucking lads like there's
Seamus
Brent.
Pujanowski.
Like there's a lad playing for Munster or rugby at the minute for Munster. He's only 19, and sure he's built like I think his parents are African, and he's Edwin Adogbo is his name. And then he's a big strong Cork accent on him, of course, because he's born here. Like,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
tremendous. I think this influx of people that came from other countries, like,
yeah, yeah.
just
Absolutely.
to boost our genetics even more. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
but it is Sligo. Is it like the fucking every other part of the west coast of Ireland? Is it littered with fucking expat British people?
Um, that's a good question again. There was, I know, I guess I don't move around it enough socially to know that, but there was traditionally a lot, yeah, out in the sticks. A lot of, I'm not going to say hippie types, but heads that came from the UK and didn't want to live there, didn't want to live in a city, and then came to Ireland and kind of head for the hills and head for the countryside. There was a lot of it in. There was more of a German thing in Leitrim back down the years. It used to be. It was so prevalent that it became cultural and it became part of the jokes about Leitrim.
Stop.
You know, yeah, yeah, yeah. There was so
Yeah.
many German people. Yeah, there was so many German people living. It was 10, 12% of the county at one point was German. And, there's
John,
be
when
jokes.
when when did it transfer? Out of interest,
Sorry.
when exactly did they transfer over? Like, did they all
Uh,
come at the one time? Like during the second certain decade?
no, no, actually, it was quite late. It was quite much later than that. I think it was something to do, it was the 70s in particular. And then from then on, 70s and 80s. And it was all kind of from one, initially, I don't know about now, but initially it was all people from one particular part of Bavaria.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And that was part of the Sligo, still is, but back in the 80s, that was the diversity in the Sligo social scene was German heads in the pubs, German heads, hippie kind of German heads who were living in parts of Leitrim and Sligo Leitrim border, doing different things and developing mixed up accents like, yeah, will you have another pint there, Heinz? No, I better go. I'll be killed if I don't go home. So the dinner be fucked to be in the bin, That was a genuine. That'd be the conversation, like, and so that was more prevalent then was a kind of a smattering of English, and then a bit more as the 80s and 90s went on. But yeah, kind of out in the hills. So if you went out into Leitrim countryside, an awful lot of people from Germany and the UK, and then you'd have a few Aussies thrown in there. South Africans, there's a few of them as well. Yeah. So
It,
yeah, it was, yeah.
yeah,
I remember, just to kind of put a context on it. I know a guy, known him for years, and his sister, the young lad that I'm talking about, this would be this man's nephew, who's a friend of mine, Brendan. Uh, his sister had a young son, and he was in school in Leitrim, and she was bringing him to German lessons because all of his friends, all of his peer group were German.
what?
Yeah,
That's incredible.
not all of them, but his
It was
core group.
enough to work getting from the
Enough
German grinds.
enough for his mum to go, oh God, let get him speaking German so he can, even though they could speak English too, but they were German.
Wow.
That's that 12% of the county at one point. I don't know where it's at now.
Because that's the thing about a place like Leitrim. You see, it's I've always, like, we went up there for one. I think it was an anniversary. We went up and stayed on this kind of, I think they had their own cider and stuff, but they were an English couple from Yorkshire, and they had
Right.
what was it? The Pink Apple was the name of the place. They had a beautiful thing with yurts, and they had a hobbit house built, and they had an outdoor/indoor kitchen that you could work away yourself. It was a fucking class setup. They did it all by hand.
Right.
These two hardy bastards took them about 5 years to dig it out with pickaxes, the whole lot on this
Wow. Okay.
bad old fucking gorse and
Yeah.
hill. They did the whole thing
Scrubby.
themselves.
Scrubby. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were the loveliest people. Your man brought me down cider. Fuck me, it knocked me sideways. It was, but my only, and I couldn't dare say it to him. They brought down tea. It was at one stage we were sitting out, and they brought down tea, and they brought down Tetleys.
All right.
And I wouldn't
Yorkshire.
I wouldn't put it down to the fucking dog. Like, and I'd sit there with this scutter, and they were talking away, going, and her mother was over visiting, and they're going, oh, and like her husband had worked in Tetley's for 40 years, and it's like, Tetley's, we get a lot, and they were getting like a supply from Tetley's as a result of his pension or whatever. And I'm going, oh, for the fuck, we'll give you a box, go home. I'm like, oh, you can fucking keep that fucking box, but like that, this was off grid, like. You wouldn't fucking find this place handy, like, and
no,
you'd want to be comfortable in your own skin. But I asked him, and he says, "Yeah, this fucker we were wild, we'd a wild fucking in our 20s and in our 30s. Then we started to calm down. We thought, well, we can't do this in England. We can't calm down in England. Let's fuck off over." And they'd no ties.
Yeah.
They just looked up on the internet, found a bad old looking plot with a bit of an old cottage on it.
Yeah.
And went at it. But it was interesting that, from their point of view, they'd been just wild. They'd partied hard.
Yeah.
And then decided, right, now is the time to settle down and get our heads in the right place and get some kids and stuff like that. But it was they couldn't do it in England, in their own words. Like,
that's typical of that countryside there. Definitely. Very typical. Sounds very familiar, to be honest.
You could, the apocalypse, I think, wouldn't hit it. Do you know that kind of way? Like?
It's kind of, you're only imagining it when you walk into it, and then you walk back out, and it doesn't get affected by outside things.
Yeah, it's that. It's like Silent Hill, because I did a podcast for a fella must be 2 months ago, and this poor old devil. I call him a poor old devil because he's knotted tighter than a fucking, like, poor bastard. He's English fella, and he's doing this kind of this podcast and this lifestyle change based on the fall of Britain, like, and he's very proud British fella, like, but he's he kind of has, he's all the expert stuff read. He has the right watch, and you know, he has he has a flint and a thing in his
Oh
pocket.
yeah.
And he has a bit of string if it all kicks off, and he has enough stuff in his backpack that, you know, he bought himself a crossbow, the whole lot, like. And I thought, I remember thinking, geez, this fella's going to teach me a thing or two. This will be very interesting podcast, you know. And I'm sitting there, and before I fucking knew it, this poor old devil, the shit he was coming out with, I went, what for fuck's? He started asking me questions. Then I went, oh wait, I'm way more prepared than you are. Are you fucking joking me? And this fella does like live fucking blogs and stuff about how to fucking protect yourself and the fall is
Oh,
coming
right,
and all
okay.
this.
Okay.
And I was like, oh Jesus Christ. You'll be the first person eating. You'll be the first lad eating, for fuck's sake. You poor old devil.
Did
Jesus
you ever
Major.
did you ever see the guy? I don't remember his name, but I think he was American. He was definitely American. I don't know if he was Irish American, but he used to hang out and I don't know where he is now, if he's still around or what happened to him. But he used to hang out in the center of Dublin City, and he was into music hall songs, and he learned them all off stuff from the early 20th century. And he used to dress like it was 1905 or 1907.
That sounds very familiar.
And he used to
Yes.
he had a penny farthing, like the bike with the big front wheel or whatever it is, and the tiny small back wheel. I don't know, I can't remember which way around the wheels are, but he one of those. And he was just completely obsessed with that period. He lived it. And I remember meeting McSavage, of course, got friendly with him
Of
and
course.
interviewed
Yeah,
him
yeah.
one time. He interviewed him for an episode of The Thing, and I don't think he might have used some of it. And it was about history or about time travel or about something like that. I think it was time travel. And your man, Dave, we had an episode on time travel or something. It was definitely something we were spending ages on it, on time travel. I can't remember if anyway, that's irrelevant. But Dave was in his house, right? And he had interviewed him in his house. And he was interesting, but at the same time, he was kind of away with it a bit. But he had this glass globe thing. It was an old fashioned lantern or lantern cover or something. It was in the middle of the table. It was a glass orb, right?
Right.
Empty, right? And they were talking. This is a fact. They were talking away, and I was thinking, maybe is this God talking, or is this some sort of spirit? But he was talking to Dave, and Dave was talking to him, and Dave was going, "Yeah, so what the fuck?" And the thing,
That's absolutely McSavage.
yeah. So the glass thing exploded. It just exploded spontaneously on the table. It's on. He still has that footage somewhere. Thing, and I can't remember what they said afterwards and what they did, but the thing, I remember being fascinated by it, going, why can't we fucking use that bit?
Yeah.
That's amazing. The thing just completely blew up. I know that's not related to anything. Just talking
No,
about
but
stuff.
it does in a kind of way, like, because I think people are starting to expand their mind a small bit more, in that they're, I suppose, with the religion disbanding, you know, to a degree, I suppose Christianity is disbanding.
Yeah,
I don't know about any of the rest of them, like, but it's I think people are kind of reverting back to, like, because I mean, if you were to open your mind and listen to some of these fellas like Randall Carlson and yeah, Graham Hancock, they would suggest that we're
yeah,
300,000-400,000 years old, and we just had a reset when a blast of
yeah,
rocks hit us for 1,000 years
yeah,
back, 12,000 years ago. But
yeah.
uh, the argument that they were putting with that, we were in tune far more with
With nature.
nature and our
Yeah.
brains and all the fucking rest of it. Like, and I know scientists would say, "Oh yeah, we use only a tenth of our brain, but the rest of it isn't worth the fuck anyway." Like, but I love the notion that fucking, you know, that there would be an expansion, that you could expand the fucking brain some bit. Like, I love the idea
Yeah,
of, Jesus, if you could just start the fucking car by thinking about it, like, to be
yeah, yeah,
fucking handy out.
yeah.
Because now I'm in talks with a fella. He used to do comedy years ago. Do you remember Shane Brown?
I
He,
do.
he had a great voice, real
I
deep,
do remember
real.
Shane Brown. I do.
He was the first cousin of Trevor,
Oh yeah,
and he had a real gravelly voice. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But highly, highly intelligent fella, like highly, superbly intelligent.
I remember
Uh,
him. Yeah.
and but he's really gone down the mushroom and hallucinogenics route, and it's done him the power of good in, but not in a stoned falling around the place kind of way, more so
Yeah.
like just, I suppose, all the anxieties that a fela'd have from growing up, maybe in whatever environment, I don't know, fucking gone. Has a nice soft
Hmm.
direct path, has moved up the country as well. And
It's
he's,
a it's very funny that though, Tom. It's very
oh,
funny to say that poor young lad. He was at fucking nothing, and he was nowhere until he discovered Class A drugs.
I know.
Then his life took off.
But here's the thing. Apparently, we've been eating them for millennia.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah.
But he actually
True.
now the only thing is he was on to me about using them, and because he wanted to do it, he's doing a podcast or whatever, and actually taking mushrooms. And I sure I've taken no drugs like we're talking about, like, but um doing mushrooms live in there, and I'm like, but I like the fact that I'm a bit fucking angry.
Mm.
I need that level of sourness in me, because if I went completely woo woo altogether, fucking the train could come off the tracks here very fucking fast. Like, you know what I mean?
I did plenty of them anyway.
Did you do much drugs?
Oh, I did shit. I did shitloads of mushrooms.
Were they any good?
Well, that's. I don't think there's any answer to that question. I think it's just they are what they are. Good. I don't know. I think it's just it takes you somewhere for sure. And you want to be kind of. I learned in the first couple of times that I did hallucinogenics that it's like it's like getting married. Although I've never been married, but I assume it's like getting married or committing to somebody. You don't want to have any doubts. You don't want to have any doubts before you do it
Right.
because stuff will come out in the middle of it.
Is that right?
So yeah, because you don't want to be if you were going to do this is my experience of it. If you're going to do hallucinogenic drugs, you have to be doing it with a light heart. You can't be going, oh fuck, will I do these? What do they do? I'm a bit afraid of doing these. That'll come out when you're off your rocker, and you'll be
Right.
very afraid. You'll be very afraid, or you'll be very because it's in here. It's all the stuff that's already there. So if you're a bit fearful at the beginning of doing a trip like that, it'll come out when it'll really elaborate when you're in it.
Ah,
But if you're light about it and go, I'm just going to take this as it comes, and just going to and really, really be like that, then you can have a more breezy kind of a time. But I did a lot of them, yeah, over when I was about 20, 21, 22, into my kind of early 20s. Because around here it was like, you know, fields, people. I remember we walked into, me and a couple of friends of mine walked into fields at night when we were coming back from the pub and go, like in October, because that was the season for it. And we just go to a field a bit drunk and pick a load of mushrooms and eat them on the go and just be completely out of our faces by the time we got out the other side. And really, and it goes from like complete out there-ness and literally hallucinating the shit out of yourself, depending on the level of the amount of stuff you're taking, or small doses where you just end up with a really nice kind of a buzz and you're laughing a lot. And that's kind of the best way to use them.
yes. Yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah,
took
yeah.
me a few extremes to get down to okay, just take. And around here in the autumn time, they were rife in the 80s. Everybody and their dog was doing mushrooms in the scene. Yeah, in the scene
I
in the
love
pubs.
that. That
Yeah,
Sligo was the fucking hallucinogens fucking capital of
like I
Ireland.
mean,
Just be
in the pubs in town. I remember walking into the one, nights that I'd have done mushrooms later on. But when I'd walk in, because I'd have to hitch a lift into town 5 miles away, go into a pub. And I remember walking into a pub one night and everybody, not everybody, but a large percentage of who was in the pub was off their face on shrooms. And I remember them all sitting around drinking blackcurrant and water, not buying drink, and just kind of maybe kind of some of them crying, laughing, or just sitting there looking at the ceiling, and the barman just going, just tipping his fingers on the counter, going, "Fuck sake," because nobody's moving. Everyone's just so that there was a lot of that, and I used to do a bit of material about it years ago, which is a true story. People, the true story is that we went and got fairly drunk, and then four of us, myself, my brother, and two of our mates, and we smoked a few joints, and then we took a load of mushrooms, and then we went walking in the woods, and we were out of our heads completely. The whole place turned into rubber. It was like the whole place was animated, literally like a Disney thing. It was like, or more darker than Disney, which is a good title for something, isn't it? Darker than Disney. And and like and we even got stopped by the cops because we were wandering around the village after coming back out of the woods, and the cops were talking to us, and we were like barely holding our faces together. And but in the midst of the center of that, the eye of that storm, I couldn't count. I didn't know how many of us there was. I knew there was four of us when we walked into the woods, but I kept feeling there was another one. So I kept stopping. I kept stopping us. We were laughing a lot too. I kept stopping us and counting us. And I thought, there's 1, 2, 3, me. There's four of us, John. And I was going, no, there's another one somewhere. And the gag I used to do about that was, people say drugs are bad, drugs are bad, drugs are antisocial. And I tell the story about thinking there was more. They can't be antisocial. So my friend group increased by 25% on a night out because of magic mushrooms. But yeah, I did a lot of them. Yeah.
Had you any negative
What?
had you any negative trip then with the
Yeah,
shrooms?
definitely. Yeah. Stuff where just wasn't just wandering around not happy at all. Just like just feeling bad. Just
Ah,
feeling just
see,
feeling like very unsure and just wanting to come back from it, wanting to come back
yeah.
to sober reality.
So that
And
would be my notion. I go, oh, I don't need that. I don't.
no,
No.
I hope this isn't going to be in the Sunday world, is it? Will this be on the internet? Will I be talking about drugs on the internet? Because I'm a gayer, you see, as well. So.
You do. I'm fair. Do you know what? Fuck it. He could have been a cousin of yours. I saw a fella the other day. He was in Cashel. No, it wasn't Cashel. It was Kildare. These fucking guards were blocking up the fucking road for some, and one of them was on the phone. They must have been pulling for tax or something and just wouldn't get out of the way. And next thing they gunned it up the fucking road for all they were worth. And it was into Kildare town. Was it Kildare or Newbridge? I can't remember. It was one or the other. And they fucking went, they gunned it for everything. I went, fuck, they must be off on a. And about 4 miles later into the town, there were the lads sitting out eating chips on the bonnet of their car. They were literally putting in the order and blocked fucking 2 miles of traffic.
Yeah.
Then
That's
spun
it.
it around the road and fucking hammering tongs in to get the chips. Whoop whoop.
Yeah.
And there was a fella sitting there, and he had a Colleary fucking build on him, like, and he had this big laugh, and there chips flying out of his mouth but he big old arms like you and stuff. Fuck, I wish John was here, because John, to say that you can do a good impression is an understatement, because you do the little understated things that you don't call yourself an impressionist, but you do these tiny things that the little flicks and the little clicks that people have. You seem to have this innate ability to spot it. Pat is very good to spot it too. Like a fellow who strokes his hair a lot, a comedian that we both know strokes his hair a lot, and he fucking did him. He did him the other night, just talking about it, and he just did that thing, and oh fuck me, I lost it. But I was wishing you could have seen this guard because it would have been, you would have loved every minute of it. He was just built like you. You know what I mean? He looked like you. And he kind of poked the other fellow when they were roaring laugh. And no fucks given of any shape, make, or
No,
form. Like,
no, no.
they're chips and fuck
Do
you.
you know? Do you know what I found really funny about all that stuff, especially the stuff we did for with Dave and the stuff we did in Pictorial? It was all, you know, I was always been a guard. So I was a guard doing sketches on telly for whatever amount, few years, you know. And cops, the couple of reactions that I get off cops was always they'd always, and that's what I love about Ireland is that people don't, and the most serious of jobs as well, they don't care. They don't
No,
care.
they don't care.
The job is not as important as laughing at something.
It's so
So
true. It's
cops
so
are
true.
brilliant. It is true. They're brilliant because once some sort of laugh comes into the thing in Ireland, other stuff melts away, and all that happens is this laugh, and people's jobs and badges and positions really go out the window. And I really like that about Ireland. And but the two reactions I got from that was lads just repeating the lines to you that that
That's
you've written to
beautiful.
slag them off. Like fellas stopping me in midnight in places around the country and looking in and seeing me and going, these are guards like going, you know. And I'm going, God, that's amazing that they're doing that and waving you on, even though you could have had 5 kilos of coke in the booth. They don't care. They just thought, you're the fella off the telly, go on ahead. And then the other reaction, which I find or did find hilarious, was the guard who never actively watched that show or any of the shows, but saw your face somewhere in a uniform and thinks you're a cop. That's the
No.
funny one. Like fellas going, talking to you. So you're going tonight. I'm going to dinner. Right, have your license there with you? Have you? And they look at you and they go, You're in the job, aren't you? How do you mean? You're a guard, aren't you? I go, no, I definitely seen you. You're a guard. No. I thought that, and the look of confusion on their
Yeah,
faces
that's
because they've seen
beautiful.
you. They've seen your image somewhere in a uniform and they just logged it in as that fella's a guard. And
That
I found that hilarious, man.
do you know what? You're so right. How some people they can make their whole job and their identity, especially Americans, fucking do it. Like, and British, I suppose,
The
do it to a
English are
degree.
brilliant at it,
They
you know.
fuck.
On the
They are.
manager, on
Yeah,
the manager, yeah.
I'll never forget. There was a guy. He was a site clerk, and who he'd remind you of. I don't know if you watched The Crown. The head butler. He'd
I've
remind you of.
yeah, yeah, him, yeah, yeah.
He had the big eyebrows like him as well. And he was a site clerk, and he'd worked in England for years, even though he was Irish. And all he was doing was fucking ordering timber and fucking blocks. And of course, I'll never forget one day a fella, and he spoke very well. A lad from fucking Ballyvorney. He went into him. He was a load all driver. He was a teleporter driver, and he went in looking for tubes of grease for greasing up the machine in the mornings, you know. And he went in and goes, "Hi." He says, "Yes, what is it, Dermot?" I says, "I need a box of grace." It was the way. And I was standing there ordering some other shit, like, but it was the way he went, "Grace," and he went, "I am absolutely sure you mean something different than what I'm hearing right now." He went,
Well,
"Grace." And this went back and forth for about 2 fucking minutes. And your man fucking knew. He knew, but he wouldn't back down on it. But I remember him telling me, like, he drove Rovers all the time. Like, he was literally Hyacinth Bouquet in a male fucking version. But he told me that in one of his first jobs, it wasn't on a site, it was in an office somewhere. He took a pay cut to get a managerial position so that he could put on the tie.
okay,
And,
okay.
and he tried to justify this with me, and I went, "What the fuck? I'd sweep the fucking road for a higher paycheck than whatever the fuck, you know, what
Yeah,
the
I
fuck
know, I know, I
just,
know.
and it was all about status and
Prestige, yeah, yeah,
prestige. But I
yeah.
remember I did a summer in America, and I worked as a security guard for Pinkerton Security, the oldest security firm in the world. They started on the trains, the railroads and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I slept most of the job. It was the fucking best job I ever had in my life.
Great.
Slept and would wake up every so often when the radio would crackle and go out and have a fag. And I remember this one night anyway, I got a call. Huge, huge fucking thing. All these bank buildings. They were fucking for State Street Bank. And we get these, it was just a big compound outside on the edge of the city in Boston. I get this phone call. Fucking, we need, get Tom up here. He'll know how to talk to him. I was like, what? What the fuck? So they'd come racing down in one of because they had squad cars and everything, the security firm. Like they'd come down, got me anyway, up to the fucking train station. And the train had shut down at 11:30. But an Irish lad from Galway, his parents were over visiting. And they went off on the rip, the three of them. And he says, we'll get a train home. That's what we'll do now. And they walked up the fucking road. And sure, nobody walks anywhere in America, but first they walked up the road. And then they went in to try and get on the train. Sure, there's no train for the last hour. Just at 12:30 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they were buzzing the buzzer and all sorts. And your man on the buzzer got fucking hyper. He was Hispanic or something. He didn't understand what they were saying. And all of a sudden it escalated into, when I land on, John, there was 4 cars. 3 of the lads had guns pointed at him.
Oh,
And the mother was crying. The father didn't know what was going on. The lad who was living there that they were visiting was he was down on his hands and knees praying to him. I'm like, what in fuck's name has happened here? And one guy now he'd the fucking all muscles. And you're like, fucking out with this big fucking gun. I was like, what are you fucking doing? And he was shouting rights. I said, you're not even a cop. Would you put the fucking gun away? I just couldn't wrap my head around these fuckers taking this job. And I had just woken up, John. And I was getting paid the same money as these fucking clowns. Do you know what I mean? And I says, so I called one of the lads. I said, put them in the back of your fucking. I said, how far are you going? Oh, only about a mile. I take them fucking home, will you? For fuck's sake. I should they were trying to get my number, send me a few pounds, and everything. No.
Yeah.
But it in the absolute opposite to that, just what you're saying, like I remember being at the Ivy Gardens, and there's a guard often does it for the for the festival. And we need to get him standing beside McSavage someday. He's the big pointy nose like McSavage. He's about 6'3".
Yeah.
And he's a guard and wears glasses. And it's phenomenal. And I was after coming out of a tent. Your man says, well, how'd you go? And I went, fucking what? For a split second, I says, McSavage after wearing a fucking uniform. He goes, no, before you say it, I am not him. I went, you're fucking doing a video for me anyway because I'm sending it to him. And he did it. Yeah, he fucking loved it. He loved it. Let me wear his hat and everything. Didn't give a bollocks. Like,
no, they don't care. Yeah,
because the laugh was more important.
I was talking to this is not like anyone having a laugh, but I got a taxi one night, and years and years ago, and this fella driving a taxi, 60 odd fella from can't remember where, somewhere down the country, and it was in Dublin. And I got chatting to him, and it turns out he was a copper and retired and was driving a taxi now. And he was very droll. He was from Kerry, I think. And he was talking away about being in the garage. It's not too bad. It's not too bad. And I done 30 years, and I'm all right. And I got out of it anyway. And I said, "What you do?" He says, "Well, I was a special branch toward the end, and then none of that." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And then I started asking more questions, and I asked him, "What is it that, why would a guard want to be?" I know there's a promotion aspect, but what would make a copper want to be in the branch? And he said, and I shit you not, this is what he said. It's just handy, like for a fellow who might want to wear his own clothes to work. And he was being serious. And I went, really? And he says, yeah. Or if you're, good at solving things, like, and you wanted to wear your own shirt and tie to work, it's handy for that. Like, I was going, all right. And he meant it.
I love that as a notion at the top of the prospectus as they're trying to, maybe coax some young guards into the branch. Those are the bullet points. That they
must be comfortable in your own clothes.
Do you have clothes?
Yeah.
If you must have clothes to apply. I fucking yeah.
must feel some sort of urgency around solving crime.
Yeah, because prior to that, it's not really
Yeah,
necessary. You know what I mean? Like,
no,
there's a fella. Fucking, I was getting a passport stamped. No, I was paying a fucking fine or something. I think it was in leak slip one time, and this fella, all he was fucking doing all day was signing passports because it was coming close to the summer. I'm sure everybody was going to holidays, and he was laying on the counter, this lad. And honest to God, if he was serving pints, he would have looked more at place. You know what I mean? He didn't.
hmm
He no more was fucking meant to be a guard. And he came in, he kind of perked up. He went, because I'd something different than a fucking passport. And next thing he's Jesus, he says, did I see you? Did I see you? Where did I see you? And I'm standing there now a good 30, 40 seconds, like, where did I see you? No, don't fucking tell me. I've no, literally, quite literally a trillion places on the planet you could have seen me. I'm
yeah,
thinking,
I know,
like,
I know.
you've given me no context. Tis in
No,
all in his head, but this is his
yeah,
kingdom, so he could
yeah,
just talk it out.
yeah, yeah.
And it turns out it was open for Delamere only up the road in Selbridge, I think it
All right,
was.
right.
But it was, and to that point, then I says, oh, we're done. Next, he started asking about the comedy, and there's a queue behind. But could he give one shit? And they were like, I'm in a hurry, and I'm parked and it was like, you be grand. You
Yeah, I
acted long,
know.
you are. Jesus, you were great that night. Now, how do you come up with the jokes? And you're like, this again couldn't give one fuck about people's needs or the job
No,
because
not at all.
the crack was
Having
way
a
better.
laugh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you have you noticed a difference or a joy, a greater joy in gigs since coming back? Do you think? Have you had a
Um,
greater appreciation for like that the night in Galway? There was there was out fairy dust in the air that night too. There was a magic.
yeah,
There was a symbiotic handing over of John, come on up here. You're going to enjoy the shit out of this without
yeah,
even.
yeah. It was, yeah. There's a lot of that. I mean, um, it's definitely there was like I've been out there since pretty much since things opened up. I've been out there February, March, and in that, in particularly in those couple of months, maybe not so much. Yeah, definitely February, March, April. It was almost the excitement was almost
Yeah,
uncontainable. It was
yeah.
literally like we cannot believe that we're here in this room and this is going to happen.
Yeah.
It was tangible,
There's
unbelievable. It did calm down and it did become more like it used to be. But in that period, I definitely, there was a lot of God, massive excitement, massive. And I was doing stuff with Tommy back then, so
of
in the early
course,
part of the year,
yeah. So there's
and
going
that
to be
was like
fire in the air anyway. Like, yeah,
amazing because of you know people people who had bought tickets and were out at a big gig to see Tommy. Amazing excitement. I
wow,
could I,
yeah.
I couldn't believe it. In certain rooms, couldn't believe the level of woohoo that was going on.
But did you find yourself quite giddy at the notion of it?
Yeah, I
Is that,
mean, nervous first, but then once, but definitely there was just because when that thing of when we're doing stand up where if you're in a room before a show starts and if people are chatting loudly or if they kind of laugh at safety announcements or they're going woohoo to everything that's said over a PA, then that's going to be exciting
yeah,
because
yeah,
they're
yeah.
really, really up for it. So there was a level of that with those shows where even with fire announcements, people were going, "What?" And you're going, fuck man, this is going to be energetic,
Yeah, yeah. That's.
Yeah.
I did my own. It's funny you say because I did my own. I did a fire announcement for the crack opening for the two Johnnies in the Marquee, and the Marquee's a fucking tough, weird place, big fucking 80-foot high tent.
The Cork one.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
fucking weird, like.
Massive.
And I said, I'll do my own announcement, I said, so I did the fire announcement and, run like fuck, basically, is what I was
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
and there's always going to be the fat lad beside you, elbow him in the mouth and run straight for the next door. And people, but they were in it. These wild fucking cultures were in it. Do you know that kind of way?
yeah,
Like, and
yeah.
when you're going, you don't think about it consciously, but you're, the nervous part of your brain goes, oh, this will be grand now. This will be grand. You go out there.
Yeah, of course, of
Do you
course.
know, there is that, and and it brings us nicely. I won't take up any more of your time, but it brings us nicely around to the crack you're going, because the last time we gigged in Tipperary together was for a rugby club in in Cashel.
Oh, was that where that was?
It was. It's only about,
When was that?
I'd say it was 2017 or 18.
Was it?
It was. It must have been 2018 at the
Oh
earliest anyway.
yeah. Oh yeah, that one. Was that the one where was that the one- I'm trying to remember who else was there.
You and me. That's it.
Was it one where there was a kind of a smallish light on the stage?
Yes.
Was that? It
I
was kind
what?
of a spotlight or something. I
No,
can't remember.
no, they had a
No.
big fucking. They brought an absolute monster of a fucking spotlight. Actually, it's funny
Oh,
you say
sorry.
spotlight. They
Yeah.
brought a monster.
Yeah.
It was the one where I had done the first half, then brought
Yeah.
you on in the second half, and I think we were
Yeah.
standing on a pallet, but it was upstairs in a
Yeah.
rugby club.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember that. Yeah.
but do you remember the woman? There was three young ones nattering away at the back, and nobody wanted to say it to them. They come in late, and there were
Yeah.
three fucking doses, and they came in late. And I must have told this story to depict what Tipperary people are like. It's no like it's fucking their fucking fun, and fuck you after that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It was the three doses, and I says I'll go down to him, fuck, because nobody wanted to go down to him because it's being local. You're going, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
says I'll go down and say something, because they were just talking amongst themselves, even though we had a fine crowd in. And a woman stood up or turned, and she first stalled you and said, "Sorry, John, 1 second there." Mid fucking your set, and turned
Yeah.
around and said, "Would you three shut the fuck up back there?"
Really? Oh
And
yeah.
you gave her a
Oh
good
yeah.
5 minutes, I think. You invented a parade around her and everything, that she was the next mayor of the town and stuff. Like, that
Oh
woman's life was
yeah.
made. But they did shut the fuck up. In fact, they fucked
Yeah. Yeah.
off. They,
Yeah. Self-policing.
I loved it. It was just
Mm.
that was how they fucking dealt with it. And
Yeah.
that was the buzz then, in that's how the gig came about in Care, and why I was so excited about the idea of doing my own show there, selling
Mm-hmm.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Next week's one is sold out, and your one has already started selling, and selling well.
That's the 29th of December.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're going to it. It's one of them rooms where magic lives, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
Like,
good.
it's
Good.
one of
Good.
the,
Good.
yeah. You're going to enjoy it.
Good.
There's a
Good.
silliness. There's a good silliness in these people, like, that kind of way.
Great.
Where you won't. Yeah, do you know? There's when I was watching you the other night, like in Galway, and I went, "Oh my god, when Colleary gets his hands on these people down in Care, oh my Christ, he may fucking move here altogether, because this is going to
Keep.
be." They'll be opening. Oh, down and cheap. They
Keep.
that now the around the Care accent, that'd be really like that. Do you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
me,
Yeah. Okay.
the R's be pulled back almost in a French way, if you know what I mean. They be, they're not that hard R you get in Tipperary town that's heading
Yeah.
to Limerick. You're
Yeah.
getting the softer R that'll be heading to Cork and Waterford kind of a direction, So
Right. 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 Right.
the R hides
Interesting.
under the tongue. Yeah, it is. The R
Interesting.
hides under the tongue. So you'll be driving the tractor. Do you know what I mean?
Tractor.
And then it's not like in the west of Ireland where they roll the R like,
Yeah.
a tractor. There's a tractor.
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 There's kind of a West of Ireland thing that kind of goes. No, I talk to myself a lot and I do these accents, and I'd be saying things like so for theatre, your man, because they do. It's not the way I'm doing it now, but I like exaggerating it, which is like your man. So he walked over there. So I was inside the house there. And now they don't do that, but a lot of people do. A lot of Westies do that thing where they go, "Sure, your man wasn't there. There.
It's funny.
It's
A friend of
up the fair
mine's.
side of yeah, it's up the fair side of Barhadreen there."
a friend of mine's father who's from out the country in I suppose it would be North Galway, I suppose where he's from, and that was how he spoke, and I just thought it was the funny kid, the funniest. And he lived in Cork most of his life. His kids and his wife, or the whole family were Cork. But when he'd be talking, I remember coming in. I was after playing a rugby match and a black eye, and I came into the house called in for a cup of tea. He says, "Jeez, there you are now, huh? There you are now." And that'd be every time you'd see him, huh? She says, "What happened? Were you talking when you should have been listening?" Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very
Low
good.
ball in
Very
high,
good.
but it was all that weird, very weird cadence. And he'd be there talking
Yes.
away to you, do you know? And I always thought, geez, he sounds like the weather or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right, man.
There's some nature in your
Yeah,
voice, like there's
that's
something.
right. Well, that's the environment again, you know.
Yeah. For me,
The
I just saw
environment.
wild trees blowing in the wind, like just the
Yeah,
way he,
yeah, yeah.
do you know, the man could read poetry to you know, that kind of way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, I've always had a fierce graw for people out that kind of way because they seem to not be overly affected by the
No, they're
kind
not.
of carry on
No,
that be going on around the
no.
country. They're their own thing, aren't they? Like they're yada
Yeah,
yada.
yeah.
It's a great
Yeah,
phrase, like yada.
that's it.
You fucking bastard! I
Yeah, who
see.
knew?
Jesus
Oh,
Christ!
you fucking way.
I wouldn't mind, but I lent you £20
Yeah.
last year for that car of yours. And you basically shoved it up your fucking hole. Well, I tell you something now. That'll be the last of you. I'll talk to you again, Josie. That's it.
And then, how's your fame?
How's it? It's
And
all
then
right.
there's another aspect to that. There's another aspect to the family side of that is people who, well, it's all families. People who want the approval of family or parents as well. It's even into their middle age, like, you know, and being affirmed or approved of by a parent, especially a son and a dad and a mother and a daughter, um, was more important than other stuff. As in, I've heard, I haven't heard these words exactly, but I've heard the sentiment many times, which is, "Oh, it's all right for you. I look at me up there now, with not an only 5 grams of cocaine and 16 bottles of champagne. Oh, fuck yeah, you left me up there. And 5 of the most beautiful women in the world, and you down below it, mammy. And you wouldn't tell me you were down there." Getting approved, it's the approval of the parents
Yeah.
rather than all these like perceived fucking rock and roll life.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I had not done only 5 grams of cocaine, and you were down having tea at baked buns with mammy, and you didn't fucking let me know. You didn't
I,
tell me about that. You fucking bastard.
yeah, I've literally experienced that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you were down home. You were jet skiing in Portugal. Right, sorry. Jesus.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's I love the fact that, yeah, now you've got my brain thinking about the depth that those two characters could go to, like, while speaking to each other, but never given an explanation as to their origins.
There's no, yeah,
There's no
there's
need.
no need for that. It's just the constant conflict is enough. The reason for it would only ruin
And truth be told, tis themselves they're round with, rather than each
it.
other. Do you know, if you go on
Yeah,
to get
well,
right deep about it.
that's right. That's right.